Well, hello. Welcome back to What's Cooking in Bert's Kitchen. Today, what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a food product that you can use as an ingredient in other things. And no, this is not going to be time-lapse 6-month photography of me growing a coconut tree and then using the coconuts for anything. What we're going to do today is we're going to make cheese. Now, you're going to need a few things in order to get started. First thing is, we need a gallon of milk, and we need to start heating it very slowly. Here on the stove, I have a nice big stock pot. You want something that's going to hold your gallon of milk. We're going to add a little bit more liquid to it, but you want at least a 5-quart pan. This one holds about 7 quarts. Leaves us plenty of room. Now we want to add a gallon of whole milk. You can use skim milk or 2% if you want. I prefer the whole milk. The one thing you don't want to do is you do not want to use an ultra pasteurized milk, which is something more like an organic milk. They heat it to too high a temperature and it kills off the bacteria in the milk that we need to actually make this cheese happen. So, here we have a gallon of milk. We're going to start heating it at about right on the middle of the dial there. So if you're working with an electric stove that goes up to 10, put it on 5. If you're working with a gas stove, get it to medium or medium-low heat. And we want to bring this up to 85 degrees. That's going to take about 8 to 10 minutes. So while that's happening, let's prepare the other ingredients we're going to need in order to make this happen. Now, one thing you'll notice I have here is a cutting board. We're not going to be chopping a whole lot of ingredients up to put into this cheese, but there are some things you'll need. First thing is rennet. Now, these ingredients that I'm going to talk to you about, citric acid and rennet, the cheese salt, you can get them at a Whole Foods market or GNC center. You may have to look around a little bit, but rennet, I'm not going to explain to you exactly what it is. It's enzymes, and it comes in a tablet about the size of an aspirin tablet. And we want a quarter of that tablet. Now here you're only seeing half a tablet because I've already made 2 batches of cheese prior to this before I decided to make this video for you to make sure I knew what I was doing. So we're going to take this tablet here, or this half a tablet, and cut it in half again so I have a quarter of a tablet. For that, you don't want a huge chef knife. This little paring knife is perfect. That way, you're not going to send the half a tablet shooting across the kitchen. So there we've cut the tablet in half. And we have our quarter tablets. A little bit. Now, what we want to do with that is stir it into a quarter cup of cold water. What do we do with the rest of the tablet? Well, this is important. Place it in a sealable bag. Stick it in the freezer till the next time you need it. Not the fridge. Don't leave it out in the room temperature. Stick it in the freezer. It'll preserve the enzymes. And what we'll do is we'll get a little whisk. And we'll thoroughly dissolve that tablet in the cold water. Now by the time we use it, it's probably going to separate a little bit again, but at that point we'll stir it up again to get it completely dissolved. The second thing you're going to need is citric acid. Now I have it in this little pouch here. Well, again, you can pick this up at a GNC or a Whole Foods market, etc. We need to take half a tablespoon or 1½ teaspoons and mix it into 1 cup of cold water. There's half. One. One and a half. Now what we'll do is we'll set those aside till our milk comes to the proper temperature. One thing you'll need is a good thermometer. This one here is graded really well, goes up to 220 degrees. Your regular meat thermometer is fine. If you have a digital one, whatever. So now the whole trick to this is to get your thermometer pretty much where you can guesstimate in the center of this milk mass. And here we are at 85 degrees. At this point we want to add, as I said, our citric acid mixture. And you'll want a slotted spoon or something like this, what they call a spider, because you want to pull it from the bottom. Now you'll see your milk starting to curdle because of the citric acid. Citric acid, vitamin C. But it's going to make your milk curdle, especially, you know, getting up to 85 degrees. You want to make sure you get that stirred in there all around so that it's evenly distributed. Now what we're going to do is continue heating the milk a further 15 degrees. We want to get up to 100 degrees. This will take a couple of minutes, 3, 4, 5 minutes. But it's important to keep a close eye on it, because once it hits 100 degrees, we want to add that rennet. Let it increase another 5 degrees, and then we're just going to let it sit for 10 minutes. And make some cheese. But basically what we're doing here is we're curdling the milk. We're separating the curds then from the whey, and please pay attention, don't run off singing Little Miss Muffet. But we're going to separate the curds and the whey because we want to get all the whey out of this milk, which is basically going to be like a yellowish, watery liquid, and the curds are going to be the solids. We want to get as much of that out of here as possible. Heat it up to 135 degrees, which we'll do in the microwave, and I'll show you all of this, obviously. And once we're there, we'll have cheese. You have to work it a little with your hands and knead it, but we'll have cheese. Now it's going to heat up, like I said, it's going to take a couple of minutes. We're in the 90s here. Okay, so now we've hit 100 degrees. At which point, At this point, we want to re-stir our rennet mixture. Make sure that it's completely mixed in there. We're going to get it poured right in there. We're going to use this spider again, but we don't want to stir. We want to pull from the bottom to the top. And the reason for this is to gently get those enzymes working without agitating them too much, causing problems with them. So it's important, and you want to do this for about 30 seconds. And you'll start to notice that the curds are becoming quite solid, and the whey is separating. As you can see, we have a lot of milk solids here. Not very appetizing, but when we get done, you'll be impressed with yourself. At this point, we want to get this now, wait for it to come up to 105 degrees. May take a minute or two. Once again, stick your thermometer in the middle of the mass, or as best you can guesstimate, because on the edges is going to be a completely different temperature. If you're too close to the heat source at the bottom, you may be registering higher based on that heat source. And there we are at 105 degrees. So at this point, we're going to obviously kill the heat. Now, if you have an electric stove, you know that it takes a while for those elements to cool off. We're going to move it off of there. Put a lid on it. Set a timer for 10 minutes. We want to just let it sit for 10 minutes and not mess with it. Okay, so it's been sitting for 10 minutes. And you'll notice inside we have all this curdled milk, these curds separated from the whey. You can see how it's pulled away from it, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So now we're going to take this spider again, a bowl, and a strainer. And what we're going to do is we're going to separate, pull out, and drain as much as we can of that whey off. We're going to get the rest of it in a minute. Put it in there and let it continue to drain. Okay, so we've got all that out of there. What we're going to do is come over to the sink, dump out the whey, because it's really not going to do us any good, as much as we can. Now, at this point, you're going to want some food-safe gloves, which again, you can pick up at GNC or a Whole Foods market, because this stuff's going to be a little warm, and we're going to make it even warmer. As a matter of fact, it's going to be quite warm. So what I prefer to do is put on 2 gloves on each hand, because we're going to get our hands involved. And what you want to do is press down on this to separate out the whey. And pour it off. I want to squeeze this down pretty good so you can feel that it's just a solid lump. Any whey that comes to the top, you just pour it off. Then, we've emptied out our bowl. We're going to take those curds, put them back in the bowl, Get as much as you can out of there. I know it seems a little messy. And we're going to microwave this for 1 minute. At which point we're going to squeeze it again, dump off some more whey, microwave it for another 30 seconds. So let's put her in there for 1 minute. Now, after 1 minute, as you can see here, there's quite a bit of liquid in this bowl. What we want to do is we want to get it out of there, dump it off, and press this down to get as much of it out as we can. We're going to microwave it for another 30 seconds. That'll give us the rest of the whey, and we'll get rid of that as well. Now, this is going to be quite hot, which is why I was telling you I wear 2 gloves. You may even want to use 3 if you're not been cooking a lot and don't have those heat-resistant hands that a lot of cooks develop. And you'll feel it's starting to get kind of stringy. It feels almost like malted mozzarella cheese, which is basically what we're making here, is mozzarella cheese. Now, you could also use that spider that we had to do this, but the hands are much more efficient. So, I got as much whey as I can out of that batch. Let's put it back in for another 30 seconds. So another 30 seconds, and as you can see, there's a little bit of whey there, but not nearly as much as what we had the first time. The point is, we want to get as much of this out of here as possible. You want to flip it over and fold it and squeeze it a little bit. Get as much of the whey out of the center of the product as we can. Which we've now done. Our next step is we want to knead this. And at this point, I'm going to flatten it out to as much of a disc as, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, this product I happen to have here is specifically cheese salt. It's made for this. You could use table salt, although it's a little bit more harsh. You might want to cut it back. I'm adding a teaspoon of this cheese salt. Spread it around, because we're going to knead it into this cheese. Now, at this point, if you wanted to, you could add in some herbs, like maybe some chopped basil or something of that nature, to give your cheese a different flavor. So, to knead this, I'm going to fold it all in like such, so I've got all that cheese, that salt in there, and I can get it mixed into my cheese. And you're going to basically push it down, turn it a quarter turn, and push it, fold it over, and push it down again. And you're going to do this 10 or 12 times till your cheese starts to get smooth and has kind of a shiny exterior to it. And you can see it's already starting to happen here. As you can see, it's getting a lot smoother as we need. If you've ever gone to an Italian deli, you see them, they're heating their cheese up, their cheese curds up in warm water to bring it up to 135, and you'll see them stretching it with a large spatula, but they're making large batches. We're just making a pound of cheese here. There we've got it. Nice, shiny. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break this in half, try and be as accurate as possible. We're going to roll it into a ball. And we basically just want to grab the bottom as little as possible, but we'll squeeze it up, and that makes your ball nice and doesn't have any, and then just tuck that bottom up under, and it doesn't have any folds and creases and seams that you see on the top. It looks like a nice round ball of cheese. One more time. Squeeze it up, nice and neat along the top. And that's all just about presentation. And here we have two nice balls of fresh mozzarella cheese. So at this point, it's still quite warm. What we want to do is we want to get a bowl with some ice water in it, a good deep bowl. And we're going to submerge them in there. That'll cool them off. It only takes a few seconds. They lose all their internal temperature real quick. So there we have 1 pound of fresh mozzarella cheese. Now at this point, wrap it in plastic wrap, stick it in your fridge, and it'll keep like any store-bought mozzarella cheese, you know, for a couple of weeks. So now we've learned how to make some fantastic cheese. Good mozzarella, good quality mozzarella you can make for a fraction of the cost that you're going to pay for it in the store. Well, thanks for spending time with us, and please come back next time. Find out what's cooking in Bert's kitchen.